Folsom State Prison, California, January 13th, 1968. 8:15 a.m. Johnny Cash is standing in a cold concrete dressing room, preparing for the most important concert of his life. 2,000 inmates are waiting in the prison cafeteria. The recording equipment is set up. Columbia Records has everything riding on this. And then the door opens. Elvis Presley walks in. "Hey, brother," Elvis says with that famous smile. "Heard you're doing something special today. Mind if I join you?" Johnny Cash looks at his longtime friend, the man he once called his musical brother, the man who helped him through his darkest days. And Johnny says one word: no. This is the story of what happened in that dressing room, the 5-year silence that followed, and the handwritten letter that finally brought two legends back together. To understand why Johnny said no, you have to go back to 1955. Sun Records, Memphis, Tennessee. That's where Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley first met. They were both young, hungry, and desperate to make it in music. Elvis was 20 years old. Johnny was 23. They were recording in the same tiny studio, often on the same day. Sam Phillips, who owned Sun Records, would have them waiting in the hallway between sessions. That's where they became friends. Sitting on the floor, passing a guitar back and forth, singing songs nobody had heard yet. Elvis would show Johnny his new moves, the hip swivels that were starting to drive teenage girls crazy. Johnny would play Elvis country ballads that made Elvis cry. They weren't competitors then. They were brothers. Two poor Southern boys who understood each other's hunger. "You're going to be bigger than anyone," Johnny told Elvis one night. Elvis laughed. "Maybe, but you're going to last longer than me." He was right about that. In 1956, Elvis exploded. Within months, he went from unknown to the biggest star in the world. Johnny was happy for him, genuinely happy. But Johnny's own career was slower, more methodical. By 1958, Elvis was making movies in Hollywood. Johnny was still touring dive bars and county fairs. The distance between them wasn't just physical, it was fame. Elvis couldn't go anywhere without causing riots. Johnny could still walk down the street unrecognized. But they stayed in touch. Letters mostly, phone calls when they could. Elvis would send Johnny care packages when he was on tour. Johnny would send Elvis new songs he'd written. Then, in 1958, Elvis went into the Army. And everything changed. While Elvis was in Germany, Johnny's career finally took off. I Walk the Line became a massive hit. Ring of Fire made him a household name. And Johnny developed something Elvis never had, a reputation for authenticity, for being real. Elvis was Hollywood now. Johnny was the outlaw, the rebel, the man who sang for prisoners and forgotten people. By the time Elvis got out of the Army in 1960, the balance had shifted. Johnny Cash was becoming the voice of the counterculture. And Elvis was becoming, in Johnny's private opinion, a sellout. This is where the tension started. Not publicly, not obviously. But privately, Johnny began to resent Elvis. Not for his success, but for what he'd done with it. Elvis was making terrible movies, singing songs written by hacks, taking whatever Colonel Parker told him to take. Johnny saw it as a waste, a betrayal of the music they'd both loved. He sold out, Johnny told his band one night after a few drinks. He could have been the greatest. Instead, he's singing to a bunch of dancing nuns in a movie nobody will remember. His band was shocked. Johnny never talked bad about anyone, especially not Elvis. But the resentment was building. Quick thought. Have you ever watched someone you respect compromise everything they believed in? That's what Johnny felt watching Elvis. It wasn't jealousy. It was disappointment. like watching a brother throw his life away. If you've ever felt that, drop a comment. Because that disappointment, that heartbreak, is what led to 1968. January 1968. Johnny Cash is at a crossroads. His career is huge, but his personal life is a disaster. He's addicted to amphetamines. His marriage is falling apart. He's been arrested multiple times. And he's about to do something crazy. Something that could end his career or save it. He's going to record a live album at Folsom State Prison. No major artist had ever done this. Record companies thought it was commercial suicide. "You want to sing to criminals?" they said. "Who's going to buy that?" But Johnny didn't care. He identified with prisoners, with outcasts, with people society had given up on. This wasn't a publicity stunt. This was personal. He'd been planning this for months. Every detail mattered. The set list, the jokes between songs, the rawness. This had to be real. It had to be honest. It had to be the opposite of everything Elvis had become. And then, on the morning of the concert, Elvis showed up. Elvis had heard about the prison concert. He thought it was brilliant, dangerous, real, the kind of thing the old Elvis would have done. So he flew to California, unannounced, hoping to be part of it, to recapture some of that authenticity he'd lost. When Elvis walked into that dressing room, Johnny's heart sank. Because he knew what Elvis wanted, and he knew he couldn't give it to him. Elvis smiled. "This is going to be incredible, brother. I brought my guitar. I figured we could do a few songs together, like old times." Johnny didn't smile back. "Elvis, I can't." Elvis's smile faded. "What do you mean, you can't?" Johnny took a breath. "This isn't that kind of show, man. This is about something real, something honest, and you..." He trailed off. Elvis stared at him. "And I what?" Johnny met his eyes. "You haven't been real in years." The room went silent. Elvis's face went white, then red. "What did you just say to me?" Johnny didn't back down. "You heard me. You're making garbage movies and singing garbage songs. And you show up here at my concert thinking you can just jump on stage and ride my coals. This isn't Hollywood, Elvis. These men don't care about your movies. They care about truth. And you stopped caring about that a long time ago." Elvis took a step forward. For a second, it looked like he might swing. Then he stopped. His voice was quiet, shaking. "I thought you were my friend." Johnny felt the words like a punch. "I am your friend. That's why I'm saying this." Elvis shook his head. "No. A friend wouldn't humiliate me like this. A friend wouldn't tell me I'm not good enough for his stage." He turned toward the door, stopped, looked back. "I came here to support you, to be part of something meaningful. Because I missed it. I missed us. But I guess that's dead now." And he walked out. Johnny stood there, frozen. His guitarist, Carl Perkins, had been in the corner the whole time. "Man, that was harsh," Carl said. Johnny nodded. "I know." "You think he'll forgive you?" Johnny didn't answer, because he didn't. No. The concert happened. It was incredible. The album became one of the greatest live recordings in music history. Johnny Cash at Folsom Prison saved his career and defined his legacy. But every time Johnny listened to it, he heard Elvis's voice. "I thought you were my friend." The media heard rumors about what happened, that Elvis had shown up and been turned away. But nobody knew the details. The speculation was brutal. Some said Johnny was jealous. Some said Elvis was entitled. The truth stayed locked in that dressing room. For 5 years, Johnny and Elvis didn't speak. They'd see each other at award shows, at industry events. They'd nod, polite, professional. But the warmth was gone. The brotherhood was dead. Johnny wanted to reach out 100 times, but pride stopped him. Elvis wanted to call, but hurt stopped him. Two stubborn men, both convinced they were right, letting a friendship die over one conversation. Then in 1973, something happened. Elvis's father, Vernon, had a heart attack. Not fatal, but serious. Elvis was devastated, terrified of losing his father. And in that fear, in that vulnerability, he thought about everyone he'd lost, everyone he'd pushed away. And he thought about Johnny. So he did something he hadn't done in years. He wrote a letter, a real letter, not typed, handwritten, 3 pages. Elvis wasn't a writer. This wasn't easy for him. But he needed Johnny to know. The letter arrived at Johnny's house in Tennessee. Johnny recognized the handwriting immediately. His hands shook as he opened it. The letter started simple. "Brother, it's been too long." Then Elvis poured everything out. The years of making bad movies because he was trapped in contracts. The songs he hated but had to sing because Colonel Parker controlled everything. The isolation. The loneliness. The feeling that he'd lost himself somewhere along the way. "You were right," Elvis wrote. "I did sell out. I let them turn me into something I'm not. And when you said it to my face, it destroyed me. Not because you were wrong, but because you were right, and I couldn't admit it." Elvis wrote about watching Johnny's career from a distance. How every time Johnny took a risk, stood up for something real, Elvis felt envious. "You became the man I wanted to be," Elvis wrote. "And instead of learning from you, I resented you for it. That's on me, brother, not you." The letter ended with a simple request. "I don't know if we can be friends again. I don't know if you even want to talk to me. But if you do, I'm here. I'm always here. Because you're one of the only people who knew me before I became Elvis. And I miss that. I miss you." Johnny read the letter 3 times. Then he called June, his wife. "I need to go see Elvis." That night, Johnny flew to Memphis. He showed up at Graceland unannounced, just like Elvis had shown up at Folsom. Elvis answered the door himself. He looked older, tired. But when he saw Johnny, his eyes lit up. "You came?" Johnny nodded. "Of course I came." They stood there for a moment. Then Johnny said the words he'd been carrying for 5 years. "I'm sorry. I was cruel. I was self-righteous. And I broke your heart because I was too proud to say I loved you." Elvis's voice cracked. I needed to hear that. Johnny stepped forward, pulled Elvis into a hug, and for the first time in 5 years, the weight lifted. They spent that whole night talking about everything, about the music industry, about their regrets, about how fame changes you in ways you can't control. Elvis told Johnny, "That day at Folsom, I wanted to prove I still had it, that I could still be the real me. And when you said no, it felt like you were saying I was too far gone." Johnny shook his head. "I should have let you on that stage. Not because you needed it, but because I needed to show you I still believed in you." Elvis smiled. "Maybe we both needed to get our asses kicked a little." They laughed. And just like that, the brotherhood was back. From 1973 until Elvis died in 1977, they were close again. Not like before. You can't go back. But they called each other, wrote letters, supported each other. When Elvis was struggling with his health, with his addiction, Johnny would check in. "I've been where you are, brother. Don't give up." When Johnny was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 1980, 3 years after Elvis died, Johnny mentioned him in his speech. there's someone who should be here tonight. Someone who loved music more than anyone I ever knew. Elvis Presley taught me that it's not about how you start. It's about whether you can find your way back to what matters. And brother, you did. Maybe not in public. Maybe not in a way the world saw. But you did. The letter Elvis wrote to Johnny in 1973 is now in the Johnny Cash Museum in Nashville. Visitors can see it, can read Elvis's handwriting, can see the vulnerability of a legend admitting he was wrong. And beside it, there's a photo. Johnny and Elvis, taken in 1975, sitting on the porch at Graceland. Both of them laughing, both of them finally at peace. That photo is labeled Brothers Again. So what's the lesson here? What do we take away from this story? Maybe it's this. Friendship isn't about never hurting each other. It's about having the courage to say, I was wrong. Johnny Cash and Elvis Presley hurt each other, deeply. For 5 years, pride and pain kept them apart. But love, real love, doesn't die easy. And sometimes, it just takes one letter, one phone call, one moment of humility to bring it back. Elvis and Johnny. Two legends who almost lost each other, but didn't. Because in the end, the music mattered. But the friendship mattered more. The music is bigger than any of us. But the stories? The stories are what keep the music alive. Subscribe for more. Hit like if this touched you. And remember, behind every legend is a human who loved, who hurt, who tried. Just like you. Just like me. Thanks for watching.